Technical difficulties. Sorry, guys, I have to look at my screen. Okay, welcome everybody. Before we get started with the council meeting, just a quick, brief announcement. We're going to do things obviously a little bit different tonight. We're going to start with a very short council meeting, just doing the basic things that we need to do as far as city business is concerned. Get through that as quickly as we can, and then go through the town hall meeting. At the town hall meeting, you'll hear from each of the council members. Then I'll give you an update on some things that's going on in the city. Going to try to get through that stuff very quickly so that there's plenty of time for Q&A for you guys. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and call the council meeting, the June 15th council meeting to order. And if you would, Councilman Rustin, would you lead us in our invocation?
Sure. Let us pray. Dear God, we thank you for the opportunity to speak here tonight, God. We thank you so much for the summertime, Lord, and what it means to the city. God, we thank you, Lord, just for the opportunity just to come together as a city tonight and just speak on behalf of the city and everything that it means to us. Lord, we thank you so much for the people that protect the city on a day-to-day basis, the people that make it go. And Lord, we just thank you for the citizens. God, I ask you, Lord, to continue to watch over our city, be with it in every step of the way. Be with the meeting tonight, the things that are discussed. Let it be for the benefit of us all. In your name we pray. Amen.
If you would please stand and pledge allegiance. Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to ask the clerk to call the roll.
Councilmember Lilly. Here. Montague. Here. Rustin.
Here.
King. Here. Phillips.
Here.
Mayor Mitchell.
Here. And let's go ahead and take a look at the agenda. I'll not read this, so you can go through it. Pretty brief though, consent agenda. We got a hearing that we have to go through today, and a few other things. So very quickly, we'll go through it. The first item on the agenda is approval of the consent agenda, which is the minutes of the regular council meeting on June the 1st and minutes of the special called council meeting on June the 10th. Are there any clarifications, additions, or corrections to the minutes? So if not, I would ask for a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion, we accept the consent agenda as written.
I'll second. Okay, and all in favor? Okay, I believe the next thing on the agenda is our public hearing. Before I start that, I do want to show that the particular property that we're talking about rezoning was recently annexed into the city. You can see the little circle on the map where the property is located. This is a diagram of the property, roughly 200 acres, and it was annexed at the request of the property owner. So because proper notice of this council meeting was provided and given in advance to this public meeting, and the notice remained posted through this meeting, I'll now entertain a motion to suspend the regularly scheduled council meeting in order to have a public hearing.
I'll make that motion.
Second. Okay, so Councilmember Rustin and Okay. So I believe we're going to have a roll call vote. So all in favor to suspend the regular meeting in order to hold a public hearing, would you call the roll?
Councilmember Lilly. Yes. Montague. Yes. Rustin.
Yes.
King. Yes. Phillips.
Yes.
Mayor Mitchell.
Yes. Okay, so I'm going to call to order the public hearing to hear for anyone speaking for or against the rezoning of the tax parcels. Let me see if I've got those identified in here. You can see the two tax parcels that are involved there. Currently, this property is not zoned, and the hearing is to zone the property to A1, which is agricultural. The property is located essentially at the intersection of Highway 331 and Joinertown Road. So I also want to just remind the council member that this is not a time for a council debate or discussion. This is a public hearing to hear from anyone in the public who wishes to speak for or against the zoning request. And there will be an opportunity for discussion during the regular council meeting. So would anyone like to speak in favor of the rezoning request? I saw John Lawley here earlier. Is he still here? Okay. John, would you like to say anything?
I'm glad there's been questions, of course, but obviously the rest of the opportunity to be in Columbiana for the city. It's a roughly 230-acre parcel that was currently zoned. And the opinion is its best use for that property is agricultural zone. We've got laid out as 13 residential lots that will be recognized. And it's best that we have one so that the residents that do purchase the land will build a single-family home on that land and use it as a apartment.
Okay. So John represents High Point Properties, which is the developers of the property. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak or comment in favor of the rezoning? Okay. So, does anyone would like to speak in opposition to the rezoning request?
Mayor, I don't want to speak in opposition. I have a question. Our sewer system is ample to handle what's coming.
Well, the sewer system, I don't think would apply in this area, and I'll ask Dale, because this would all be, any homes there would have septic systems.
They're all gonna be on their own. The smallest lot, the 4-acre lot, the largest lot is 4 acres. Highway 331 is also on the fire road. So if you come down 26 from 31, you take a left on 26, a left on 331, heading north. It also intersects the Town Road, which goes north out of the city and goes by on their school. So, yeah. So where Town Road intersects with the next road, that's Highway 331.
So on here, if you follow the cursor, this is Town Road. It kind of drops off the picture here, but it intersects with 331 here.
In the top left section of the map, the purple circle is the location.
And this particular area right here was already part of the city limits. And so, and you can see this swath right here represents that hockey stick that's there. And so the red boundaries here are the property that's basically being brought in. Well, it's already been brought into the city and now it's being rezoned. Okay. Are there any, is there anyone who would like to speak against the zoning? Okay, if there's no other public comments, at this time I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the public hearing.
I make a motion.
I'll second. All in favor of adjourning the public hearing? Okay. Public hearing is adjourned. Okay. I guess now there's the ordinance. I apologize. So now what we have to do is adopt the ordinance for rezoning the property from no zoning to A1. As you can see, instead of reading the entire thing once, basically the hearing is complete. We basically will direct the city clerk to post this ordinance if we pass it. So is there any discussion from the council about the ordinance? Okay. Is there a motion to adopt the ordinance?
Mr. Mayor, I propose that we adopt ordinance 052103 to rezone the property from a no zoning to A1.
I'll second. Okay, all in favor? Okay, the ordinance is passed. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is a resolution to approve a ABC license for Just a Tish. Just a Tish, as you know, already has an ABC license, but this is a special one just for Liberty Day. Well, they'll be operating a sidewalk and outdoor beer garden. So is there any questions or discussion from the council regarding the request for the special ABC license? Where are they going to be set up? So I think they've talked with the property owner, and they're going to set up in the parking lot that they currently have today. And then, you know, there are some benches on the grassy areas under the tree, and I think they'll also be using that area. And it will be primarily beer, because the theme is a beer garden, but beer and wine will be available just like it normally is in Just a Tish. Any other questions or comments from the council? Okay, if not, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the resolution.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we adopt resolution 062108. It's a resolution for the ABC license for Just a Tish LLC.
Second.
All in favor? This is a roll call?
This is for the liquor license.
Okay.
Councilmember Lilly, myself,
Yes.
Preston,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Phillips.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, resolution's passed. Okay, is there any additional city business that council would like to bring up? Okay. Announcements? Alan?
So we have, this Friday night is the last music on Main Street, and it's the Divines. That starts at 7 o'clock on Friday night. And then next weekend is Liberty Day weekend, so that will start on Friday night and run through the entire weekend.
Okay. All right, any comments from the public? All right, if there's no other comment, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the council meeting.
Mayor, I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
This meeting is adjourned. Okay, so now we're going to move into our town hall meeting. I hope everybody brought their own signs. We didn't make the signs agree or disagree to pass out. So hopefully you brought your own. So what we're going to do, we're going to start off with each one of our council members by ward is going to speak for about 2 minutes, basically just to explain to you, what's going on in their wards, what's important to them as far as the ward is concerned, and as far as the city is concerned. So we'll start with Ward 1 and Councilwoman Lilly. So why don't you pass the microphone down to her? And we'll just pass it down. Okay. Councilwoman Lilly.
Well, I'm the icebreaker, so for some of you all who are, if you don't know each other, just wave at each other, tell each other how you doing, introduce yourself. Okay, Mayor, that's one of my minutes. Okay, as many of you already know, my name is Karen Lilly, and I represent District 1. This past year, the town was affected by 2 life-changing events, the pandemic and tornado. After everything we have gone through, we are a blessed community. Here you see a new mayor and council representatives who will be working with each other to help improve Columbiana. I am committed in helping each in any way that I can, as well as listening to your concerns and ideas. I believe children are our future. One of my goals was to have new basketball goals placed down on Highway 47 South beside the old Wallace Campbell building. Well, we are currently in discussion about this project. I cannot do this on my own. I need your help. I need your eyes and your ears. There is a lot that I vision for Columbiana. But to make this happen, we must all be committed to helping each other. Thank you.
Councilwoman Mizell.
Good afternoon. I'm Vicki myself for District 2. Since taking office in November of 20, it has been somewhat of a roller coaster, but not in a bad way. All of the council coming together along with the new mayor, tossing around our ideas and opinions. We've worked through all of the COVID issues and tornadoes while also looking at ways to work toward taking care of all city employees, undergoing debt refinance for Old Mill Square, working toward a new fire station across town, and a new public works facility, just to name a few. This is only a small portion of what we have been working on as a council. Now for the future of District 2, I want to see good things for our district. By saying that, I need to know what your ideas are for our district and what you would like to see accomplished. It is not about me, but about us. We are all important in District 2, and I want to know what your thoughts are first and foremost. If we work together, we can see things happen and come to life for us. I encourage each of you to call me and let's talk about your ideas. I want to know what you want. I will come meet with you in person if you would rather. I would love to see more youth activities and programs encouraging things for our elderly and maybe even another daycare in town one day. Also, as you all know, we had Columbiana Cleanup Day Saturday. This is all on a different note, of course, because it wasn't good. It was very disappointing that my group went around the roundabout a little ways behind the Arts Council here and up Old Highway 25 to Jonesboro Circle and picked up 6 30-gallon bags full of garbage and still couldn't get to some of that due to the tall grass. District 2, we need to work on this. Among that garbage was some very disturbing and dangerous contraband that we wouldn't want our children to walk up on and get a hold of. So please, 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 let's try and work on helping to keep this all cleaned up as much as possible. Thank you, and please give me a call if I can do anything to help.
Okay, Councilman Rustin.
Good afternoon, Ricky Rustin is my name. I'm the council person for District 3. Sort of broke my notes down into 3 or 4 categories. First thing I want to talk about is the challenges. I think from the city, as holistically, 2020 was a challenge for everybody that was here. And obviously it was a challenge for the city. New administration took over in November, and I think right out of the gate, there was a lot of energy there, but also too, we were faced with 2 hurricanes. And shortly after the first of the year was a tornado. So the challenges there has been a lot of things dealing with the relief efforts. I think the mayor and the council's done an outstanding job of communicating what those efforts consist of, the things that we've done, the things that we're going to do down the road. And the big thing there is, while it may be a challenge, the community is responding in a massive way. Even, 10 to 15 minutes after that tornado came through, it was just like it was a war zone, but it's obviously a lot of people in distress there. Obviously District 1, which is Miss Lily's area, mine in 3, and then Ashley's in 5 were the most impacted. But, that time wasn't about districts, it's really about the city. So I thought the city responded to that in a ungodly way. That was very responsive, and I appreciate everybody that did that, obviously the city workers and everything. So those are some of the challenges that we faced just in 2020 and going into this year. Obviously, there's been a lot of successes. Coming out of COVID, actually revenues were pretty good. Revenues still are growing. The expenses are being well controlled. And I guess the story in that is that the city withstood a pandemic. There's a lot of activity and interest in Columbiana right now. Obviously, the new Main Street director has been hired, and she's here tonight, so a lot of activity around that. And obviously, you talked about we just did some rezoning, but we've got a lot of new homes going in town. They can't do them fast enough out here. I just talked to Mr. Lawley about they're about to start building homes out there in 69 months on the other side of the street. And so there's a lot of activity in Columbiana right now that I've seen a lot of success. Where I think we got the biggest opportunity is with all this activity is I know the mayor and the council with 58 Inc., they're doing a lot of recruiting for a lot of people to come into town. While you may not see that with your eyes, a lot of good things are happening. A lot of people are coming in here. But I still think, and I mentioned it when we first started, when we got, at the first council meeting of the new administration, we're still trying to recruit restaurants. And I know that's a big thing on social media, it's a big thing in all the conversations. And if anybody can hear what I'm saying, I think there's a prime opportunity in restaurants in Columbiana right now. And right there on Main Street with the new art facility here, it's prime real estate. So a lot of those recruiting efforts are going on, which is a great opportunity. And last, I just want to make a mention, I don't know if people mentioned tonight, just in our community right now, we just got, at Shelby County High School, just got a new principal. CMS, the middle school, is about to get a new principal. Shelby County High School just hired a new football coach. The football team went to the playoffs for the first time in 11 years. Obviously, seems like there hadn't been a softball playoff without an actually softball team in it. They went to the regionals again this year. And obviously, baseball went to the quarterfinals. So all this stuff sort of ties into everything. There's a lot of good things happening, but there's a lot of opportunities out there that I think we can face. So, okay.
Councilwoman King.
Hello. I just wanted to say first that good news, we're paving Mildred and Main, and it should start within the next 2 weeks. So I know. But I also am on the beautification board, so I want to talk about beautifying Columbiana a little bit. On our cleanup day, we had 23 people that came, and we picked up 39 bags of trash. That's a lot for what little part we covered. So I would like to encourage everyone to be conscious of Columbiana. We get what we put in, and if we take care of what we got, we keep it clean. I encourage us to work for that because businesses are going to come here. We have people that are wanting to move here and live here, and it's a dirty little town. Nobody wants that. And we have the prettiest Main Street. and beautiful area out here. I just hate to see it, people just brush it off because it's dirty. So just be more mindful, and if you see it, pick it up. I mean, we can all do just a little bit to help, even if it's just a piece of gum wrapper or, anything. It'd be nice just to keep it clean. And I'd also like to tell y'all, we're gonna have the tour of homes. The beautification board is, finally, it's coming back this year. And we would love anybody that's interested in showing your home to let me or John Harrison is one that's over it. If you'll let him or me know, contact us, we'd be glad to. We're excited about it. We want to get more young people involved. They're going to be the ones that carry the city forward. And it's time for us to let them start doing and using their ideas because they've got a lot better ones than I do. I'm still old school sometimes. And also I'd like to say that we have the Liberty Day pageant has been turned into a picture pageant. It's a flat $50, so you can send in 3 pictures, and we have, it's for boys, Tiny Mr. Liberty, and then little girl, baby Liberty, all the way up to senior Liberty. So if you'd like to do that, please have those, we've got a place on the website for the city. Please fill out your form and send your money in by June the 19th. And the last thing is, I'm available anytime for any of my district or anybody else. I don't care. Columbiana is Columbiana to me. And all of you are the same. So I would appreciate anybody calling me if you have a concern, whether it's in your district or anybody else's. I'm on the website. You can find me on Facebook. Everybody just about knows how to get in touch with me. So please, if you have anything you just want to talk about, I'll be grateful to listen to it and see if I can do something about it. So thank you.
Councilman Phillips.
Well, I think the previous four stole all my thunder because some of the things that I'm going to talk about has already been talked. But I'm Ashley Phillips. I represent District 5. The biggest news of the year to me was the destruction of the tornado. It affected a lot of people on Highway 30 and down the Gibson Farm Road area. The support from the cleanup was unbelievable. That's throughout town. I know Mooney Road got hit too, but it was awesome, the help that we had in the cleanup. I tell everybody, what's great about Columbiana is that if you really need help, the people in this town, they'll come out and help and do anything for you at any time. And it obviously showed during the cleanup. I'm also on the Park and Rec board here, and I'm going to touch on some things that have already been discussed, but we are planning on installing basketball goals, one at the city track by the elementary school, which will benefit the school for sure, and other goals down on the basketball court on Highway 47. Also, we're planning on upgrading the Columbiana girls softball facilities because they need a lot of upgrades, like bigger bathrooms, improving concession stand, new fencing, that kind of thing. And there's more, but those are just some of the highlights that I think. But to me, what will improve the league is to get more participation from girls in this community. So if you know any girls, please encourage them to play because if you've never watched a softball game, it is so fun to watch. And what an opportunity for young ladies down the road, especially scholarships that, if they are able to get one down the road. There's so many great opportunities for them. So I encourage everybody to let the girls know to come sign up. I would like to see the league get to around 200 girls like it used to be. All right, now I don't know why we hadn't been there, but I think we got to get the word out and go from there. In my district, she talked about paving roads. I would kind of like to get this on the radar, but Palm Street, which is in by Stillwood Estates, we need to repair that road, I think, and also part of Gibson Farm Road from years ago, not the whole road, but part of it. But that would be my 2 main roads in my district that I've seen that need repairs. Let me see where. But anyway, lastly, right here, one of the projects we're all working on here is the public works building, second fire station, which will be on the other side of the track toward the baseball park. Hopefully, soon we'll be able to finalize the best plan and move forward soon. And I'm not good at the computer. I check it probably once every month, but anybody can call or text or get me at the school. I teach at Delvin Hill. Anybody throughout town. So anything you have a concern about, please give me a call, or any of the councilmen or the mayor. Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna stand up and go over here to the podium because it's easier to work these charts. I appreciate all these council members. I think we're very blessed and very fortunate to have those fine people on our city council, and I think they're doing a good job for the city. But if you don't think that they're doing a good job for the city, you need to let us know. Let them know. They would like to know if you think there's something that they need to do that they're not doing, or if there's just something that you want them to know about that you don't think that maybe they're aware of. Okay, so I'm going to kind of go through this fairly quickly so that what we can do is go into question and answer, because this is a town hall. This is about communicating, you guys communicating with us. You know, one of the first things when I came on board as the new mayor, I wanted to find an organization chart and understand the organization of the city. We didn't have one, okay? And so this one's been put together. It's certainly not perfect, and I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but one of the things I want to talk to you about is over here on the left-hand side where you see these boards. And I've categorized them as municipal boards, and what those are boards that the city council can create, and they are authorized by Alabama statute. And so those boards have to be created for a certain purpose and organized in a certain way. And so as you look at these list of municipal boards, you'll also see some I's in parentheses, and those are incorporated boards. And so those boards are separately incorporated and operate independently from the city of Columbiana. You're probably all most familiar with the water board, but the water board does not work directly for the city of Columbiana. They were created as a municipal corporation or municipal board by the city of Columbiana. The elected body of the city council, appoints the board members, but then they operate as an independent entity. And you can see some of the other ones. Now, these other boards, like the Recreation Board, the Planning Commission, the Zoning Board of Adjustment, the Board of Adjustment and Appeals, and the Library Board, those are boards that, again, are authorized by statute, but they are not separately incorporated. And so the city council does have more say, more voice, more control in the day-to-day operation of those boards. We are always looking for people who wish to participate on these boards and committees. Now, you know, once we appoint people to these boards, they serve a specified term as specified by statute, and we cannot remove them until they complete their term. Many of them are 6-year terms, some of them are 4-year terms, and they're staggered terms, so we don't replace everybody at the same time. Now, there is a way to replace them. It's actually called impeachment, which I don't, to be honest with you, know how to do that. If we felt like that was something that had to be done, we could go. And then, of course, people can resign from the board. Then over here in the other area, I've categorized them as other boards and committees, and those aren't established by statute. Those are just boards and committees that we have created in the city of Columbiana. Beautification Board, Finance Committee, Personnel and Policy Committee, Public Safety Committee, Public Works Committee. Those committees we have council representatives on all of those committees and boards, and we have council representatives on some of the municipal boards, but not all of them, because in some cases statute does not allow us to put city officials on those boards. But we do have them on all the other boards and committees. And so once again, if you had an issue, say like a finance issue or a personnel or policy issue, and we in the city, if we need to, for example, to adopt a new, as we did, a new pay scale, a new pay policy, or a disciplinary policy for the city, we would go to the Personnel and Policy Committee, and they would present that policy to the city council. Okay, and so one thing you'll see, dotted line to the court. The court obviously is an independent entity, with one exception. Obviously, they are appointed by the city council, the judge is, And, and they are responsible to the city council as far as management of the budget. But as far as any legal or day-to-day control of court operations, they're pretty much an independent entity. Okay, so what I want to do is kind of go through our 2020 financial audit. One of the things I was really concerned about it when I was campaigning for mayor is that when I was campaigning in 2020, the latest published financial data that we had on our website was a 2018 financial audit. It takes us a very, very long time to get our finances audited. We just had a preliminary, we've received, I think, our audit report, which we have to go through with our auditors for 2020 now. So I'm going to talk to you about those preliminary results. So, apologize for the sun on here, but for those who are familiar with financial statements, in the business or corporate world, you typically have income statements and balance sheets. And governmental accounting is somewhat different. This is somewhat similar to a balance sheet, but this is a statement of net position, which is essentially saying what is it's equivalent to the net worth of the city. And so the key numbers that I don't know if you can see because of the sun down here is the city's net worth or net position is $18 million in 2020, and that's about $1 million increase from 2019, where it was $17 million. By the way, as we get into the Q&A session, if anybody has any questions about this stuff, we can come back to these charts, and I'll have Charlene answer the questions. So, this is basically looking at the 5-year trend, 4.8% CAGR. For those who aren't familiar with that acronym, that stands for Compound Annual Growth Rate. It's used a lot in evaluating growth of businesses and whatnot. And essentially, the net positions increased about $1 million a year for the past 5 years, so that's good news. By the way, 4.8% compound annual growth rate for that same 5-year period in the U.S. I don't have data for just the state of Alabama. The inflation rate has been about 1.7%, so staying ahead of inflation as far as that's concerned. Revenue and expenses. So if you take a look for this year, you can see, or for 2020, excuse me, about $6 million in revenue, about $5 million in expenses, so we got about $1 million surplus. If you look at the 5-year trend, again, revenue has been increasing at about 2.8%. Remember, inflation 1.7, so staying ahead of inflation. And expenses slightly more, 3.3% compound annual growth rate. In my opinion, that's not significant. But our surplus has been pretty flat at about $1 million a year. So it's actually had about a 0.4% compound annual growth rate. These are the various funds that we have. We have 4 major funds in the city. We have the court, the debt, capital, general fund. And if you take a look at all these fund balances, you can see that it's remained fairly constant at around $6 million up here. This spike in the capital fund in 2018 was due to financing associated with this Old Mill Square project. You can see another little additional financing that was done in 2020 for the Old Mill Square project as well, which again spiked up a little bit, or blipped up the total fund balances. But it's been pretty constant at about $6 million for all funds. So you look at all that stuff and you got a lot of numbers and it makes your head spin around. And so what does it all mean? Well, most people want to know, how is the city doing financially? Is it financially solvent? And how would you know? How does it stack up against other cities of our size? Well, it turns out there's a test for that that's been being used a lot by government financial analysts. And it's called the 10-point test. And it looks at 3 categories of ratios. So you take all of this data from our statement of net position, from our balance sheet, our statements of activity, which is our revenues and expenses, and you generate these ratios. Liquidity ratios are dealing with, do we have the day-to-day cash and liquid assets to be able to pay our operating expenses? Can we make our payroll? Can we pay our bills? Can we service our debt? And our liquidity is very, very good. Profitability ratios, which is basically not really a profit when you're a municipal organization, but are your operating revenues higher than your operating expenses, and we're good there. And then the solvency ratios have to do with debt. And if you take a look at the last 5 years, going down to from 2016 to 2020, you can see our score for the last 3 years has been 7. So what does that mean? It's a 10-point test. And the legend is down at the bottom. If you're 10 or greater, it means that you're absolutely among the best of all the cities of comparable size in the United States. If you're between 5 and 9, and our 7 is smack in the middle of that, it means that you are better than most. It means that most of your ratios are better than your peer governments, and a few are equal to. And if you take a look at ours, basically you get a 1, a 2, a 0, or a -1. And if you take a look at ours, they're all positive, which 1 means that you're very strong, and 2 is very, very strong. 0 is neutral, and then -1. And you can see, because of the debt burden associated here, we did get a -1. But we do have our capital asset condition, and our ability to cover those assets is very, very strong. So I think a 7 is a good position for the city of Columbiana. All right, this is our current year's budget. I can't see it because of the sun, unfortunately. But the thing you want to know is that for fiscal year to date, we had budgeted to have a budget surplus at this point in time. And this is, by the way, as of the end of May, about $300,000. We have a budget surplus of about $1 million. My opinion, the reason we have that budget surplus is, yes, I think we're doing a good job of controlling expenses, but the reality is we have been understaffed in a lot of areas, and we're continue to be understaffed in the city today. It's actually a challenge in today's labor market to actually get people to come to work, and because of that, we're not experiencing the employee-related expenses associated with that. So that has created a surplus, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that further as we go along. So let's talk. This is a lot of stuff, and I apologize for that, so I'm going to go through it real quick. If you want to come back to it later, that's fine, or have questions about it. But again, people asked us when I was campaigning, why didn't we live stream the council meetings? Well, we did. We did the organizational meeting. We've done it ever since. We're doing it right now. And we post these on our website. They're recorded. You can see them if you don't get a chance to see the live stream. Publish monthly financial reports. This was something I said we were going to do because I personally was complaining about the fact that I can only find data that's back to 2018. Now that data is always available through the Public Records Act, but you have to come ask for it and dig it out, and I felt like you shouldn't have to do that. So we publish a monthly financial report, and we present it monthly in council meetings, and we put it on our website. Economic growth, Ricky talked a lot about it, and I agree. I think focusing on sustained and manageable economic growth for our city should be our #1 priority. And so I asked 58 Inc. and the Shelby County Mayors Association for us to host have a series of economic development conferences, which we did January, February, March. We hosted the first one here in Columbiana, and the other 2 were hosted in other municipalities in the county. Our pay scale was way out of date. In fact, it was so far out of date, it was not in compliance with Fair Labor Standards Act, because we had pay scales on there that were below the federal minimum wage. So our city council, going back to our policy committee that we were talking about earlier, they got together and they fixed that for us. Talk about the CARES Act. Due to COVID-19, we had some manna from heaven, if you will. Government gave us some money, and we spent that money on PPE, sanitation and health items, emergency equipment for our first responders, library tablets, and Wi-Fi for our library as well. It's something I'm really, really proud of. In this facility, I mean, the population of our community is less than 5,000 people, and we administered 17,000 COVID vaccines from mid-February to the end of April, right here in this room. And so really, really good. And a lot of people came to Columbiana who weren't Columbiana residents, obviously, to get their COVID vaccines. Everyone was significantly impressed, not only with this facility, but with our community in general. On vaccine days, I would come over here, I'd walk over at lunchtime from City Hall and just chit chat with people out in the area. And all I ever got was positive feedback from this facility in our city. I talked about the budget surplus. We've refunded our city debt. And in fact, we actually issued the bonds today. This is a process that takes a while. We've talked about it at a lot of our council meetings, so I'm not going to go into all the detail, but we did do that today. And so what that does is our debt service remains the same, the term of our loan remains the same, our interest rate was reduced, and it did free up some cash that the city can use for capital improvements. As people learn about this facility, we are getting lots and lots of bookings here in the Grand Hall. And, you know, coming out of COVID-19 and whatnot, we're on track to triple the revenue for leasing this building right here. And so that's good news as well. We re-energized Main Street Columbiana. I talked about this at the Main Street meeting that we had a week or so ago, whenever it was. When I was a candidate, one of the first things I did was contact the president of the Shelby County Mayors Association, which was Mayor Holly Cost at Montevallo. And I wanted to learn from her what was important, what were the issues and challenges facing mayors of municipalities in Shelby County. And that was very, very good information that I got from Mayor Cost. But also, she was a huge proponent of Main Street Alabama. The Main Street program in Montevallo has been extremely successful, and frankly, ours had floundered. And I decided that we would re-energize that. It took some soul searching. We talked about it on the council. We tried to decide whether or not we should fund more of the Main Street activity. And so we decided, as some of the other communities have done, to make the Main Street director, and Brittany Davis, who's here, is our new Main Street director. She's been on the job maybe about a month now, trying to get her feet on the ground. But we decided to make that a full-time city position. She has some other responsibilities to the city, but basically we think those two things are compatible with Main Street Columbiana and what she's doing for the city. And we're looking forward to great things. Contain Logistics. We just opened a new business, a containerization packaging company in our industrial park. Our industrial park is a blighted area. It's an area that I really, really want to redevelop. And we were glad to have those guys come in. The buildings at the old Vulcan Materials have been upgraded and improved. It looks a lot better. I think Contain has started out with about 40 people. They do packaging for automotive parts, primarily for Mercedes. And these parts are shipped all over the world in the packaging that Contain builds in the facility here in Columbiana. You know, I've made a big deal about, to anybody who'll listen, that, you know, our city is an ideal location for parts suppliers for the automotive industry. And Contain is also trying to go after expanding their business to the new Toyota Mazda facility that's being built in Huntsville. But we are 40 miles from Lincoln, Alabama, where a Honda factory is at. We are 60 miles from Vance, Alabama, where Mercedes is at. 75 miles from the Hyundai facility in Montgomery, and 100 miles from the new Toyota Mazda facility. This is really a great centralized location for suppliers in the automotive industry who want to support all of those. You know, our first toe in the water is Contain, so hopefully we can attract some more folks who are supporting that automotive industry in Alabama. We've got a new city and a new Old Mill Square website. Is the Old Mill Square website actually up yet? Okay, so we are working on the Old Mill Square website. The new city website is up. I think it's pretty good. It certainly looks a lot better. but I still think we're trying to improve it and work the bugs out. But the basic functionality is there, and the goal is to make it user-friendly, easy to find information on there for everybody. And also, when visitors come and look at the Columbiana website, it's something that grabs their attention and makes them want to know more about Columbiana. So the American Rescue Plan Act, we are going to get money associated with that. We do not have that money yet, and there are specific purposes that I'm going to talk that can be used for. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. The council will have to decide how to use that money. We're supposed to get it in 2 tranches. The first one was supposed to already be here. It's not. And the second one is supposed to be here a year later, and we have to spend the money by 2024. Okay, the sun's on it, but I think our police department says we have a new police chief, Chief Bowers. We have a new police lieutenant. We've hired 3 new officers, and there's some other stuff on there. One of the things is it talks about, I can see it sticking out of the sun glare. It talks about a flock camera. We have this camera. It is, I forget what the acronym flock stands for, and Jeff can help us with that. It is not to give you speeding tickets, okay? But if there is a warrant, open warrant out against you, and you happen to drive through that camera in your vehicle that's registered to you, it's going to get you, and it's going to notify these guys to come get you, okay? And obviously, the new regime in the police department have been working on trying to improve, develop some crime awareness programs. You talk about the 9 p.m. routine. You see it on the sign. You see it on our website. And then also improve community relations. Fire, the fire department, we have one of the best volunteer fire departments in the state of Alabama. We're really blessed. And, they just do their job. And so you try to say, well, what did you do? Well, our job is to help people save lives, be a first responder every day, 24 hours a day. And they do a great job. And when it comes to hurricane response, tornado response, flood response, or medical response, those guys are, in addition to fire, obviously, those guys are always Johnny on the spot. No pun intended. Okay. Public Works, we've updated our sanitation equipment. We actually disposed, along with the contractor, more than 17,000 yards of tornado debris. We're already working on some improvements to playground, cross-country trails. Some of these things are in work and haven't happened yet. Some improvements that Ashley talked about already to the softball and baseball fields. So those things are in work. The paving of Main Street and Mildred Street was Main Street was actually supposed to have started this past weekend. The contractor did not obviously get to it. His reasoning is that due to bad weather, he was behind on some other projects that he had to finish. And Alan, where's Alan? When is he going to start?
They're hoping to be here next week.
Okay, so we hope if they can start early next week and promise us they can finish by Thursday, we're going to go ahead and do Main Street. If not, we will start on Mildred Street. Is that correct?
No, Thompson Street.
Thompson, okay. Environmental, we got a CBD grant that stands for Community Block Development Grant of $450,000, and that's going to allow us, I think we're starting the process of soliciting for bids now to replace the main sewer trunk line, which is at the intersection of College Street or Highway 70 and Highway 25, and hopefully that'll be starting in a couple of months, sooner rather than later. Again, the $450,000 is not the entire cost of the project, but that was a huge help to the city to be able to do that work. And also Dale has made some updates to the sewage treatment plant as well. And there's more of those that we plan to do. Senior Center, the big deal is it's back open. And during COVID and when things were limited, this fiscal year, they still were able to serve 5,800 meals. Most of that was Meals on Wheels, I suppose. So a lot of good work there. We used to have volunteers, but because of COVID, we didn't have the volunteers, so most of that Meals on Wheels delivery was by the senior center staff. And they pretty much led the effort when we were collecting donations for tornado relief. A lot of that stuff was initially collected right here in this room, and then it was eventually transferred over to the senior center. Municipal court. So we basically have a new prosecutor and a new public defender in the municipal court. There are city hall kiosks now for payments of court fines and things of that nature. And also there's a municipal intercept system. So if you are grossly delinquent in your fines and you happen to be getting one of those checks from the federal government, whether it's a tax refund or whatnot, the state of Alabama can intercept that and send that money to us for payment of the fines that you owe. And then they've implemented virtual hearings and bond transactions and payments so that the magistrate's not called out in the middle of the night to have to go down to the jail or whatever to conduct these hearings. Did I get that half right, Judge? Okay. Library is also open. They've gotten a $9,000 grant, and then they just kicked off their summer reading program, and I think the response was great. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about FEMA and Small Business Administration assistance and disaster declarations relative to the tornado. So outlook, American Rescue Plan Act. There are some COVID-related things that the federal government says that we can use that money for. There are some statutory and constitutional limitations in the state of Alabama, which would preclude municipalities for spending the money in some of the ways that the American Rescue Plan Act says that we could spend them. But one of the things that we can use it for is that we can upgrade water systems, sewer systems, including, which is something that's often overlooked, and for those of you who had issues in the recent heavy rains and floods, is stormwater systems. So that is an area that the council is looking at as far as using the American Rescue Plan Act funds. It's about $840,000. Again, we're supposed to get half of it, quote, any day now, and then the other half of it in 12 months. Begin construction on Fire Station number 2 and Public Works Maintenance Facility. We've talked about that in numerous council sessions. The information is on our website from these various council sessions. I don't want to spend a lot of time on that, but we can talk about it in the dialogue if anybody has any questions about that. Someone talked about it, might have been, it was either Vicky or Kim or whatever, about the grass when they were cleaning up. So what we need to do, and by the way, I want to go back and say these objectives, these are mine. These objectives will have to be approved by the city council. So what I'm telling you right now may not be the same things that ultimately get adopted as our city's objectives for 2022. I hope they do, but these are things that I think are important. So improved right-of-way maintenance is one of them. Cutting the grass, particularly on the major roads leading into and out of Columbiana. I think we need to do a better job. There's some equipment issues, there's some staffing issues. We need to fix those, and I think we have the funds, and as we start working next month on our 2022 budget, we are going to work on planning to take care of those things so that our city is something that we're all very, very proud of when people are driving in and out of it. So that's kind of related to a long-range strategic capital improvement plan and budget, what I call an integrated plan for the city, a comprehensive or an integrated plan. Our planning commission has a 5-year plan that they should have updated in 20, which they did not. It's something that I indicated when I was campaigning needs to be done. We haven't started. I'm going to blame COVID on that, but at the end of the day, there's no excuse. We've got to get this integrated strategic plan for the city done. And we're going to start now, but it's definitely, hopefully, will be finished or will be finished in 2022, fiscal 22. Ashley talked about it, enhancing the recreation facilities. Some work on that's been done. Again, we want to try to build that into our budget for 2022, along with some of the other capital improvement projects. Upgrade our transit system. You people call it the trolley. Our trolley is not sustainable and maintainable. You can't get parts for it. So it's kind of a novelty, if you will, and we may use it in parades and things like that, but we're not going to use the trolley to actually, it's not ADA compliant to actually move people around. We've been using the senior center van. The senior center is now back open. They'll be taking trips. So we need another vehicle, and we need the budget for that. Establishing an entertainment district, basically between Old Mill Square and Main Street. So these are businesses with liquor licenses, and it's a specifically defined area where folks could basically transit from place to place with open containers of alcohol. I'm setting a goal for a 5% year-over-year revenue increase. That's a little bit more than what we've had recently, but not much. But I think we can do it mainly because as coming out of COVID, I think there's an opportunity for us to really sort of juice up our revenue. Continued updated procedures and ordinances, which the council's doing. Integration of all of the various holidays and events that we have in the city with activity that goes on at Shelby County Arts Council. For example, on Cowboy Day, I've talked to Bruce Andrews. He's in agreement, but obviously he had a plan for the year already. But things like Cowboy Day, he would have exhibits of Western or Native American art in the EBSCO gallery, things of that nature. I'd like for us to add at least one new community event for Columbiana. We're kind of an event town when you think about it. You know, Cowboy Day, Liberty Day, Christmas Parade, on and on and on, Music on Main, etc. There is a program through the Alabama Department of Agriculture called Sweet Grown Alabama. And I think Main Street has said, hey, we want to take that on, working with the Department of Agriculture, where it's basically a farm to market type deal. We'll have like an activity, say on Main Street or whatever, and basically have local farmers serving food that has been grown and prepared locally under Sweet Grown Alabama. And then my thing is when we have the Bass Trail and they come to Lay Lake and all these guys are coming to Columbiana, I would like to use this facility to have a boat show when we have those events. I think it would be well received. We're going to have to find some sponsors and some people who want to do it. I've even figured out how to get the boats into this room. But we can only put so many. We'll have to put some of them outside. Goal is to open 3 new retail outlets. That's not, I don't think, that difficult. And it goes back to, Ricky was talking about the need for restaurants. I think we can do that. Residential expansion, Springs Crossing is expanding into their final phases. I think it's going to be somewhere around 140 homes. Saddlewood Trails, which is the new development that High Point Properties is going to be breaking ground on soon across Highway 70 and up a little bit more towards town from Springs Crossing. That will be 210-ish lots and homes there. And then Clearview Estates is what we just adopted the ordinance for the agriculture, or the zoning ordinance for A1 for that High Point development. And then we have a developer who's looking at the golf course, and they've drawn up some preliminary plans. Could be roughly 110, 115 homes in that particular area. And then revitalized, as I've already talked about, our industrial park. I'm sorry I'm taking too long. Let me see. This is something that I think we all should be concerned about. So this is the 5-year population trend in Columbiana, and it's declining. Now, that chart is maybe a little bit dramatic because of the scale. I plugged the numbers in Excel, and that's what it spit out. But that's 55 people. But the point is, go back to those developments that I just talked about. Springs Crossing, there's been over 100 homes already completed, and families have moved into those. Those aren't people that have just come from one part of Columbiana and moved over to Springs Crossing and vacated their existing home in Columbiana. Many of those folks have moved into Columbiana from elsewhere. So what concerns me is it means that more people are moving out of Columbiana than are moving in. And we need to, and people aren't staying. And why is that? So you take a look at the 10 fastest growing cities in Alabama, and you probably can't see it because of the sun on it. I highlighted in blue 4 cities in Baldwin County, which is the fastest growing county in our state. And that's Fairhope, Foley, Gulf Shores, and Daphne. People like the beach. They like to be down around the Gulf Coast. But 2 of the top 10 cities in Alabama are our neighbors, 2 of the top 10 municipalities, and that's Chelsea and Calera, as the fastest growing communities. And, as far as I'm concerned, we're not any different than Chelsea or Calera. These guys are growing like gangbusters, and our population is declining. We've got to do something about that. Then you got up there, you got Athens, which is kind of north of Huntsville, which is another rapidly growing area. And then this community, Pikes, something or other near Montgomery. I'm not even familiar with it. So why? I'm going to ask a question now. I'm going to ask you guys, why do you think more people leave Columbiana? Why is our population declining? We've got a beautiful city. What do you think is the reason? Anybody? There's no wrong answer. Pardon? Okay, that's one. Jobs. Job opportunities. What else? Pardon? Schools. I'm going to talk about all of these. Go ahead. What else? I'm sorry? I'm sorry. Oh, grocery stores. You got a problem with Piggly Wiggly? I mean, So there's obviously a lot of reasons. There's a lot of reasons. Let me talk about schools that was brought up while we're doing this. I had a meeting a couple of weeks ago with the school superintendent, Dr. Brooks, and there are 7 county high schools in Shelby County, and there are 700 high schools in the state of Alabama. 6 of those 7 high schools in Shelby County, those county high schools, are in the top 100 high schools in this state, including Shelby County High School right here in Columbiana. The 7th county high school in the state, I think finished, I think he said 105, so it was pretty close to the top 100. And I've done some research on, ACT scores and SAT scores and things like that. The high school is not that bad now as far as the education, which I think is the most important part. So is there concern about facilities? I'm asking you. So I did mention to him about athletic facilities. And what Dr. Brooks told me, which I thought was relevant, his focus is on classrooms. Now you got those 2 fastest growing cities, Chelsea and Calera, but right below that top 10, the next one is Lena. And they've got kids in portable classrooms all over the place. And so his focus with his limited budget is making sure that he's got classrooms for kids. And I understand that, so we need to figure out how we can address some of the other issues. But as far as the quality of the schools, the data says that I think we're looking pretty good. Jobs. I agree. Retail jobs are, for the most part, are great jobs. If you're a retail owner, it's a great business, but they're not necessarily the best jobs to support a family. I'm old school. I come out of a manufacturing background, which is why I sort of have this focus of trying to want to redevelop that industrial park. There is a reason why every economist in every industrialized nation in the world measures gross domestic product as their primary measure for economic growth. And that's because you create wealth by producing things. And retail and service industries are there because of the wealth created by production. That production is not just manufacturing, by the way. It's agriculture as well. And agriculture is a big part of our community. So yes, I think jobs is part of it. But I think another part of it is, well, let me go to the next chart. So take a look at this. By the way, I'm going to apologize. These charts are a little bit cattywampus because this was a presentation that was given a couple of weeks ago at the Alabama League of Municipalities convention. And so I took pictures of this presentation with my camera from an angle. So they're a little cattywampus. But 45% of the U.S. population is below the age of 35. Now, if you take a look up here, Columbiana's median age is 40 and the U.S. median age is 38. So what does that say? We're a little bit older as a population than the nation as a whole, but half of the population is pretty young. And I got to tell you, they don't necessarily think and like and want to do the same things that I want to do. And I think if we want our young people to stay in Columbiana, as we look to the future, we need to look at what do those folks want. So you take a look at this next chart. This is the generations that you've heard about. You know, I'm a baby boomer. There's a lot of baby boomers probably out here. The traditionalists, there's probably a few of those still there. Then you have the Gen X, the millennials, and then whoever comes after that. So this next chart is the one that's really the most dramatic. So in 2020, I wish that sun wasn't there, but you can see less than 20% of the population is baby boomers like me. And the traditionalists don't even, they're so small they don't even show up on the chart anymore. So 80% of the population, or more than 80%, are Gen Xers and millennials. And so if you are a business wanting to come to Columbiana, you're going to look at all kinds of data. And one of those data is what's the growth? And we already saw what the growth was. So how do we overcome that? So we've got to figure out a way to attract more people to our city and people with families and whose kids want to stay here and that there's opportunity here for them. And the opportunity, and we know that the city is a great place to live. It's a great place to live for me. But is it a great place to live for the Gen Xers and the millennials? But as we're planning, if we go back and we get that long-term strategic, integrated strategic plan that I talked about built, we need to be looking 30 years out in the future to 2050. And when you look at that, not only the boomers don't register, the Gen Xers don't register, and we're looking at all millennials and Gen Z. And I can tell you, you know, the things that they value and what's important to them, what they want in life, it ain't the same. And, you know, you got guys like me who are trying to plan for the future. So that's what we need, guys. We need visionaries. We need people who can think about the future of Columbiana. And I think we've got the right team on our council to do that. But as we put together this strategic planning initiative here, we need help from all of you. So we need volunteers on these boards. We need these people thinking about the youth and doing things that's going to support the younger generation in our community and make them want to stay here and have things that they can do here and that they want to stay here after they graduate from high school or college and raise their families here in Columbiana. And so it's going to take, I think, a little bit different perspective than maybe we have had in the past. Something to think about. All right, well, let me go back. So I just want to say this one last thing. This is our city's logo. It says, embracing the future and preserving the past. And up here is our city seal, and it says, our history, our future. Now, they're just logos, you say, but there's a lot of focus there on the past. In fact, the past gets equal billing with the future on here. But if you, the charts that we just looked at, we need to be thinking about those young folks in the future. And so I think the past is important. We learn a lot of lessons from the past, But there's a reason why our windshields are orders of magnitude bigger than our rearview mirrors. And that's because what's in front of us is a heck of a lot more important than what's behind us. So something for us to think about. Okay, come on. Maybe that's the end. Oh, no, tornado relief. Okay. I'll just sort of read the chart here. This is the disaster declaration that we fall under in Alabama for the tornado, DRAL 4596. That's the FEMA number. The declaration was April 26, 2021. During that declaration, we were only granted individual assistance. I talked about this at several council meetings. We had a presentation from EMA and we had a presentation from the SBA. Those presentations are on the council meeting. They're recorded. There's a lot of information there, so I don't have time to go through all of that. But the important thing is only individual assistance. There was no public assistance, which means the city of Columbiana, Shelby County, the state at that time, did not get any funding to help deal with any of the costs associated with it. But individuals could get it. On June the 8th, an amendment was issued to that disaster declaration, which now provides public assistance to the affected counties in Shelby County. And that's an opportunity for us to be able to recoup some of the costs that we have already incurred. And as far as disaster cleanup, it's an opportunity for us to do more. I asked at the last work session, we discussed it at the council meeting, that the council consider, and the work, the preliminary work's already been done, to go out and solicit contracts. We've picked up most of the big debris, but these large tree stumps with the big root balls that the contractor couldn't pick up for us are still out there. And so we're soliciting contracts to pick that up. And again, I think this public assistance is going to allow us to help recover for some of that. So it affects the March 25 and 26 tornadoes, the 25th. So this is sort of the chronology, if you will, just giving you all that as far as public assistance. Here's the disaster summary, etc. But here's the thing that I wanted to give you. This information is on our website. It's on our Facebook page. People applying for individual assistance with FEMA need to do so by the 25th of this month. And so it's getting here very, very quickly. And so what FEMA's not going to cover anything that insurance already covers, but if you are underinsured or if you are uninsured, you may get something from FEMA. FEMA is probably primarily going to focus on emergency relief. In other words, if you need housing, if you need clothing, if you need food, the basic needs, and not necessarily going to cover the fact that your insurance company didn't give you the full value of what it cost to replace your roof or whatever it was. The SBA, on the other hand, will do that through a loan. And in that presentation, for those of you who did not see it, the SBA urged people to apply for the loans whether you think you need it or not. You can get up to $200,000 if you're a homeowner, up to $40,000 if you're a renter, and apply for it. And then whatever you're approved for, you then have the option at a later date to decide whether or not you want to take the money, the loan, or not. These loans are interest rates as low as 1.25%. You don't even have to make a payment for 18 months after you get so you get an opportunity to get back on your feet. So if you have damage that your insurance doesn't cover and you need some help, these SBA loans may be the thing. If you need to get some work done on your house, but you haven't settled with your insurance company, these SBA loans can tie you over. And then when you get the insurance settlement, because you don't have to pay for 18 months, then pay back SBA. All of that was in the presentation that the SBA presented. My point is, you got also to the 25th of June to do that. So I'm asking you, and I'm asking you to tell anyone you know who may need help to look at all these different links, call these phone numbers, and if you need to help them, if they're elderly, disabled, hearing impaired, vision impaired, whatever, people who need help, let's make sure that they get the word and they can go at least call FEMA and ask for assistance by the 25th of June. Call SBA or email them or go to their website and apply on their website by the 25th of June. It's critical. Well, the last thing is on the public assistance, the city, in order to get the public assistance, has until the 30th of June to apply for it, so we have to get cracking there as well. All right, so I'm sorry that took so long. I kind of wanted to go through that and then open it up to questions to me or anybody on the council, clarification about anything. And I think if you have a question.
Can we use a microphone?
Pardon?
Can they use a microphone for?
Yes, I was going to say, if you have a question, I'd actually like for you to come up here so everybody can hear you. Or we'll just pass the mic around if you don't want to come up here. So this is the opportunity to have the dialogue. By the way, we have our county commissioner here with us, so thank you for being here. And if anybody has any questions or comments for him, you can say it to him. Okay. Yes, sir.
You were talking about, whoa, that's so weird. You were talking about Parks and Rec, and I had an idea because we have like a lot of free space and grass around town. So I was thinking we could build a skate park, like just a small one. And some benefits of it would be it'd give kids something to do. You can make a little bit of income off of them.
That sounds good.
It would draw people to town because they wouldn't have to go all the way out to Veterans Park.
Is this rollerblading or is this skateboarding? Or both?
Skateboarding, scootering, rollerblading, all of it.
Okay, I think it's great.
Thanks.
You guys, comments? You got the recreation board, skate park?
Well, it came up. This came up before. Well, it's a good point. I think the time that we had talked about it, it was out here before Oakland Square was built. So obviously it's a parking lot now. So I guess the first thing that to identify what area that there is for one, and then define what can be done there. I'm not a skateboarder, I'm not a rollerblader, but every time we build something from ground up, we always had to have the space for it. So, well, it's a good point, and we'll take a look at it and see if because the other thing with those types of things, I think it benefits if it's in the middle of town somewhere. So I wrote a note down, so we'll take a look at it and see if we can identify some type of area and see what that cost may be and see how much we charge people to come.
And so if you have any ideas, I say this is a good time to have this meeting because I said we are actually going to start our budget planning process next month. And so this is the time for us to be able to take all these ideas and so we can figure out how we can fund them and what we can do, what we can't do, and build that into our plan. Yes, sir.
One question. An area I thought would be good for the skate park is if y'all owned the area behind Jack's. It's a big open field, pretty flat.
I think that has a pretty good price tag. Yes.
On that note, and I apologize, we've got lots of different communities having big meetings tonight. One of those is one of the communities that was mentioned earlier with Chelsea. But one of the things that we want to make sure that not only Columbiana and its citizens understand is there's lots of grants out there. And one of the things that Shelby County put on the back burner for several years was our community park grants. And there's a lot of conversation by Ashley, from Miss Lily and others about some of the things that Columbiana might need. Last year, that park grant, we reinstituted that park grant. There was $150,000 available. I'm thankful to say that Vincent received about $44,000 of that $150,000, but a area north of us received the remaining portion of it. There were only 3 grants. So as you plan your long-term objectives, if you will put things in there that you want to accomplish each year, we've got a commitment to continue to increase that. Chad Scroggins, our county manager, understands that those are the things that draw people to our communities, is the amenities that we have. A lot of the things that the mayor mentioned, those are partnerships that the county can help this municipality pull off. Obviously, I live here locally in Wilsonville. Columbiana is my home. I went to school here, as the mayor was saying. A lot of these cities that you see there, Paving Road, one of the things they did was they formed their own school system. That's a lot of big municipalities' concerns there. We have a very good school system here. Could we use some different facilities? Sure we could. Some of those things come through grants and other things like that. So I think your idea over there, Will, was very good. And if you can get the city to consider it, or you find the appropriate place, we have grants available to us. Also serve on several nonprofit boards, the Holly Family Foundation, Quaco, and those areas supply a lot of very advantageous grants for municipalities for those type of growth. So I want to encourage you, as you build that plan out, always seek. Also on that same thing, as we're making public comment, the mayor talked about many different events that are going on. The county within the past 60 days hired Kendall Williams as the new county manager of tourism. One of those things that she'll be responsible for is helping you create these events and getting the necessary publication through discovershelby.com to be able to advertise these events, put that out. I know I still saw Discover Shelby. Allie's obviously working with Kendall. A lot of that's been pushed out there. One of those things that obviously the county was able to do just most recently was last week we celebrated the new Discover Shelby conference room down at the Alabama 4-H Center. So again, we've helped fund some of the new arrangements there at the Guthrie Lodge for the Alabama 4-H Center. And, you know, the Bass Trail in itself has allowed every improvement you see at Beeswax Park that's taken place in the past decade, that has been 100% because of the money generated by the Alabama Bass Trail coming there, the Bassmasters coming there, and all of the hotel stays. That money can only be spent on those type of things. So we have a lot of things going on in this district. Columbiana is the heart of this district. I agree with the mayor. One of the things, and it's not a bad thing, I'll always say that, what we're experiencing here in Columbiana is a little bit similar to what people are experiencing in Oak Mountain, believe it or not. The area is so good to live in, the older generation doesn't leave. They don't go somewhere else to retire. They retire there. Well, they don't have school age children, or their school age children have moved off. So that impacts the population a lot. Oak Mountain High Schools has kind of hit a flat line with their educational process. But again, I encourage you to keep coming to events like this, educating your council what you'd like to see in your area and allowing them to do it. Mayor, just a quick comment. Love the fact that you guys are doing Zoom, because I typically have a meeting opposite your council meeting, so I can actually watch these things and get to hear a lot of the things going on. So I encourage you to always be forthright with your community and talk to the things you want to. We have a lot of great partnerships going on. And quite frankly, the mayor pointed out, I think Shelby County is about $1.6 billion into this thing. And I know the mayor mentioned, that was one of the things, even when we did the vaccination here locally, this area was defined as a need-based area for vaccinations, but the county rented this space from Columbiana to make sure that not only that was here, but we've got a great facility, hoping that people would notice this facility. It's great to see the opportunities that are coming with new housing there. But Columbiana holds a housing thing that a lot of places don't, and some people will akin Columbiana to Old Homewood. And the fact that you've got a lot of small historic homes, and the new generation really loves those homes. They want to be connected to those things. So I think we'll continue to see Columbiana build on that revitalization that's taken here downtown. I think the Main Street deal will continue to build on that. And I'm just excited about helping this group of people. I'm thankful to call all these people friends and have known them all except the mayor, and hope to continue to get to know him in the future. So we're here to help you.
Questions?
We have one on here.
All right. Out of the mouths of babes, you know.
I was just gonna say about what you were talking about earlier, helping us to get jobs and stuff. If we could open up a few more, like maybe factories somewhere and like make lumber, that could bring our lumber prices down. And we could also like sell lumber to like Wilsonville and Clear and Chelsea.
Well, you know, we've been talking about this with my wife. My wife's grandfather was in the timber business. He used to have his own timber mill. Her uncle was in the timber business. And we've got a lot of timber around here. And a lot of it is used for pulp wood, for manufacturing paper, but also is used for construction. So there's great opportunities, I think, for lumber in this particular area. And I'm with you as far as industry. All of these things like industry, which is a little bit different from retail, and I think that's why we tend to focus on retail. I'm not saying it's easy. I mean, I've been a small business owner in retail. It's not easy. But generally, production, whether it's a sawmill, a lumber mill, or a factory, requires enormous amounts of investment. And for those of you who don't know, Columbiana sits in an economic opportunity zone. We're the only one in Shelby County. But it's not just Columbiana. In fact, Columbiana is only 40% of the opportunity zone. The other 60% of it is in unincorporated Shelby County. But from my perspective, just looking at it, most of that is woodland. A lot of it is owned by Westervelt, so we're looking at timberland. It's probably not an area that's going to be suitable for the type of investment. A lot of it is residential areas that may not be suitable for the type of investment that's in there. And I'm a guy who tilts at windmills, and so I've talked to the head of Opportunity Alabama, and which is underneath ADECA. And I've talked to actually our congressional representative and one of our senators' representatives about making some changes to that opportunity zone. They're defined by census tracts, but the preliminary census data, there's been some discussion in Congress about looking at those opportunity zones and potentially expanding them. It just so happens that the census tract that defines our opportunity zone is bounded by Highway 25. So our industrial park is outside of it. So folks who wanted to come in and invest in setting up a factory or facility in that industrial park would not be able to take advantage of any of the benefits that the opportunity zone. So it's a tall mountain to climb, but if we can, now's maybe the time to do it. So if we can do it, we can certainly, and as we're looking at this infrastructure bill and what they're going to spend money on, maybe it'd be an opportunity to get an amendment in there that says, hey, let us modify these opportunity zones. For example, if we could expand them and say, the opportunity zone is the census tract and anywhere within, say, a 5-mile boundary of that tract. Then that would get our industrial park into the opportunity zone, and hopefully we'd be able to take advantage of that. I just think the census tracts were convenient as far as using those to establish opportunity zones, but they're also almost arbitrary in some respects. So, that's my story. Any other great questions? Any other questions? Yes.
On the recreational question, I heard a rumor that the prior administration was trying to do a trail down to the Shelby Ironworks. I want to know if you have any information on that. And then also, is there any planning or thought being given to more recreational kind of trail system here?
So, I heard the same rumor. We have not actually had any discussion on that in this administration. It doesn't mean it's not a bad idea, a good idea, whatever. Like Ricky.
Kim can probably chime in. Grace, I think it was along the lines of Highway 47, it went from all the way from the gas company, it's going to go all the way to basically Shelby, I think, on this side thing. And I think the property was an individual owner, but I think what sort of stalemated that was Alagasco. Is that right? There's a gas line or something that runs down through there that Crossroads track, something with Alagasco wouldn't, I think Alagasco wouldn't give the right of way, or it was a right of way issue with Alagasco, I think. But from this council has not talked about that, and I think, just going back to that, I think Alagasco pretty much said no right of way. So I think that's about the only trail,
Well, I know, another county was involved.
So the answer is no plans. That doesn't mean that we won't have any plans.
When you talk about that trail, we've got the trail that, with partnership with the county and the board, it's got the trail behind the track over here, the cross-country trail, and that's open up to the public. I think you have to go there outside of school hours, 'cause I think they close the gate. But obviously, that's been in the process of being cleaned up. There's an MOA involved in that too, because, obviously the tornado and the hurricanes threw debris all over the place. So that's one of the partnerships that Kevin's talked about, and there's representatives from Board of Education here tonight. So that's another trail that you can get lost in if you're not careful. But that's a big one that's high priority list now, especially talking about the MOA, who's responsible for what, who keeps maintain the maintenance of the trail. So that's one we have existing now. But in terms of the other one, as I think about it, that's now a Gasco right-of-way issue that I don't think it'll come back up, because it was the previous mayor's property that he was trying to work with them on to get that established. I don't think that's going to come through.
One of the things that they hoped raised was at that time when it first started, they were hoping to connect the historical courthouse to the Shelby Island. And that was how they were going to get some of the funding, was to seek outside historical funding for that particular thing. Also, closely related, and a lot of people don't know it's there, but if you go to Beeswax, there is almost a 3.5 mile track that will take you all the way around the outer skirts of the Beeswax Park and back around. It's very well cut out and defined. The only area kind of wooded goes up behind the county officer's home, so you definitely have protection in that area. It's open during any daytime hours as the park is open there, and they actually have new restrooms on the site that were just put in the last 12 months out there. So you have a lot of nice park amenities in that particular well that's this close. And technically, in my lifetime, Columbiana has just about always claimed that area already anyway, so you might as well claim that as the park as well.
So, Grace, also, when we went on our Main Street tour to Blair and Montevallo, I know there were sidebar conversations with those communities about establishing trails to connect those communities, and also bike paths, bike trails.
Yes, I have a question. On County Road 47 to Nelson Walk Road, our sign has been down since last year. And Ms. Mayor has spoken to you about the Nelson Walk Road sign that has been down. Haven't heard anything. The sign is still not up yet. And we have a lot of bad potholes down on that road that we fix.
Okay, so Alan, on our street sign replacement, where are we with that?
We've got a bunch of new ones in, and so we've been waiting on the hardware to put them back on the post.
So do we have one for, this is Nelson Walk Road, right?
Yes.
Do we have one for Nelson Walk?
Yes.
So what kind of hardware do we have to wait?
What manholes are on top of all of the mound and brackets?
Okay. And do we have any estimate of what?
Yeah, they should be here in the next week or so.
All right. So that's one. Now potholes are the other issue. So what I'll do is, Alan and I will actually go out and take a look at that and see. If these guys that are coming to pave Main Street and Milton Street and whatnot, I keep sort of expanding and I keep saying to Alan, I said, while they're here, let's see if they can do this. So if there's some asphalt, that's available, if we can fill a pothole with it, that's one thing. And then, I've asked him also to paint some streets like College Street, Piggly Wiggly, while we're painting. Don't know if we can get the contractor to do that yet or not.
Another question. I know you said that you had problems with the hiring for the city maintenance and some of the
Well,
no, some of the, no.
Yeah, so right now, primarily, it's with the Public Works Department, but we did have some vacancies in the police department, and it's not a hiring issue per se, but we do have some staffing issues in the volunteer fire department as well.
Yeah, but I follow on what you said about the grass is so high. I don't know how often the city normally cuts the grass. That's not what it is for.
Yeah, I agree with you, Deborah. We've got, the excuse is we have some broken down equipment that's in the shop, okay? But that's really an excuse. We do have some manpower issues, that's also another excuse. But it goes back to the objective that I put on the thing is that we've got to develop a plan to do a better job of maintaining the rights of way that City of Columbiana is responsible for in the city limits. And so it's a plan to cut the grass on a regular basis. Again, I think, I'll go back to, I said I was going to come back to that $1 million surplus that we have, where we had planned to have a $300,000 surplus. It's an opportunity for us to take those funds and use them and budget for them and plan for them for some of the equipment upgrades that we need to do things that have been neglected for quite some time. But it's all about planning. Part of that planning is doing an assessment of what we need. Our city needs to do an assessment of all of its roads and develop a plan for the maintenance and upkeep and improvement of those roads over time, because it's something that we just can't do all at one time. We don't have the financial resources to do that. But we can do it if we have a plan. Same thing with the equipment. If we have a plan to update and upgrade that capital equipment so that we have what we need, we can do that. If we have a maintenance facility where our guys can work on that equipment, I mean, they're trying to do it outside in the parking lot at the old, doctor's clinic. It's just a terrible, terrible situation. It's not ideal. And those are things that, again, hopefully we can use some of the funds that were made available to the refinancing that are debt, and then also some of the other funds that may be available to us through ARPA, the American Rescue Plan Act. Don't know. There are grants also that are available to us, as Kevin was talking about, but he was talking about primarily recreational grants, but there's lots of different, there's CDBG grants and others. And we just have to be aggressive at pursuing those. Now, there's never any guarantee. You have to compete for those grants, and everybody in the state wants the money. So, but again, I think with the effort and it's focused properly, we'll do well, like we did with our sewer grant of $450,000. That's the maximum you can get on a CDBG grant. It's $450,000. We got that. So, yeah.
During the time when the storm hit, a lot of the power lines and a lot of cable lines were down, and they came up and put up a lot of the posts. But they also left a lot of the wiring that's still on the side of the road. Whose responsibility?
Well, it really should be Alabama Power, but we can certainly talk to those folks and make sure that they do that. So again, is this out in Nelson Walker?
Because when they did come out to cut the grass, they went around it because the lines were down. They just skipped over that.
My guess is that I hope those lines aren't hot, but they still should be cleaned up, okay? And again, and to the degree that they're interfering with the ability for us to be able to maintain the right of way, then that's an issue as well. And Alabama Power should have a responsibility to deal with that. So, but we can talk to them about that. Yes, ma'am. Okay, so Jeff, did you by any chance talk to them about what was going? She was talking about whose responsibility it is to clean up a residence, but you said if no one is there. Is that what you said? So if it's an abandoned home and well, there is an abatement process, so it's a legal process that we would have to go through, and then essentially the municipality, the county, the state, whoever could potentially take ownership of the property and either clean it up, tear it down, or what have you. But there is a process that you can do that, and it's a little bit bureaucratic, but it can be done. So there are some places I know in our community that we need to address that. But there are also places in our community where there needs to be cleanup, and there are people living there. And some of them are atrocious, and some of it is, we can hold the people accountable. And Jeff's been out into your area, and we have issued nuisance letters to those folks, and then those have been followed up with citations in some cases. And I do think there has been some recent progress. Is that correct, Jeff?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, so, but it's in, so it's in several places. But I do know that we went and talked about, the area around Nelson Walker Road in particular. And so we did issue some nuisance letters, and we've done it in the past to some other areas in town. But we need people to help us identify those things so that we can go do those things. We do have an ordinance officer, but again, sometimes I don't think he gets all that stuff done. Now, we're not heartless. Okay, there are people who simply do not have the means to take care of and clean up there, and that's where the community has to get involved. And so we as a community need to figure out who those folks are that need help, and we need to talk to our faith-based organizations, our civic organizations, et cetera, and say, Boy Scouts, whoever it might be, let's go help these people cut their grass. Let's go help these people repair their homes if we can. And again, there are charitable organizations other than the ones that I just named that can also help with that. So we need to identify who those people are who truly need help, and then we need to identify those that need a kick in the pants. What else? We need a library sign. Okay. All right. Kind of like where we have the, the courthouse parking sign, something like that that says, go this way to the library. Okay, I think that's a good idea, Sheila. I really do. It's one of those things, you look but you don't see. I never would have even thought about it because I know where the library is at. Okay, so very good. I think we can fix that. We can also maybe highlight the library on the website. I think it'd be a good idea to talk about the summer reading program, things like that. So I think that's there's a lot of good things that we can do to try to do that.
At the beginning of Movie Road, when you're trying to come out, all the grass, I guess it's the homeowners, but you have to pretty much, you're almost in the road on 47 before you can see because of the grass on the right.
Is this where you turn going up towards Timothy and that area?
Well, before you get there,
yeah.
The beginning of Movie Road, right at the church.
Oh, at the church?
Right at the church. When you're coming out.
Okay. Well, there was another area that I thought it was past the church, and someone had cut that grass. But it's still there by the church?
Yeah, we just. We had that cut back probably a week, 2 weeks ago, and so you're still having trouble seeing. What we'll do, we'll make contact with the homeowner again and just have him cut it back further. He cut back the first, I guess, 2 big office grasses with bush hog. Okay, and so if you're still having trouble seeing, we'll get in contact with Les again and see if he can cut the. Right. Okay. Yeah, we'll take care of that.
Anything else?
I think they're privately owned, but I'll ask the question anyway. You were talking about residences that are run down and things like that, but for the businesses, especially along Main Street, directly across from the courthouse, there's several storefronts that are empty, that are in disrepair. Does the city have any latitude to affect that?
Again, we can use the abatement process to work with the homeowners. And it could work in a condemnation. The old pool hall, last example, that was condemned. The property owner sold property and it's being redeveloped, that there's others, to your point. And I think those are things that, you know, and again, this is an excuse, we get overcome by events with other things, and we don't address those things as aggressively as we should. So, again, it takes forums like this for people to say, hey, you need to do something about this. So we'll see what we can do.
And Joel, to your point, what the mayor mentioned, that abatement process, I know the last couple administrations, there's been a few properties that we have abated. And so that process can get lengthy, and then, you know, you talk to the homeowner, or you talk to the business owner, and they're going to say, yeah, I'll get it done. Well, eventually, you take their word for it or whatever, and it goes to be months down the road, and you forget about it, and it's still not done. Once the abatement process is started, it goes through legal activity and all that stuff. So once you're through the legal activity, it costs more money to start that back over. So once the council starts that abatement process, you need to be willing to go through it. In the situation, I know what you're talking about. I think it's one of those instances where the property owner said, we'll take care of it, and it just becomes a deal to where we forgot, they forgot, and it's still there. So, but that stuff costs money. You hope that people keep up with their stuff, but there is that abatement process that we can truly go through. And I think it takes a couple months, but I know the one in particular you're talking about, and that's been 6 to 8 years for sure. So.
I have a concern. I'm concerned about this road against right behind Old Mill Square. You get right behind, right here, you got Mr. Gunford, is it Gun, that owns it. You will get hit if you don't watch out. You have to get out in the road.
You're talking about where the road merges?
Yes, you have to get out in the road. I have known that it would have been 3 accidents that have occurred right there. Because you can't see. Either some vehicles are right in there, but you have to get out of the road to see what's coming before you can pull out.
Okay, take a look at that. My biggest problem is I guess I'm getting a little.
Mr. Mayor, I'm here. Going along with what the lady was speaking about overgrown grass on Highland Drive and 25, it's kind of a little dip as you come out of Highland, and the grass is so high now that you kind of have to sit up real tall to make sure you can see oncoming traffic. And so it's been that way for a while. And also, some of the homeowners have trimmed trees, and we've always taken it to the road. And usually it's picked up once a month, but it's probably been 2 to 3 months. The piles of.
Been up that way, Alan?
We picked some up, but we got tied up in picking all that other stuff up. We're still going around picking up stone and bringing it.
Right, and I understand that and know that that seems minor compared to what some have gone through,
Well,
but
it's a point well taken, and if it's been there for 3 months, we need to take a look at it. The grass, Alan and I had a discussion about that.
The grass is talking about that is the state. They're responsible for it.
Well, we can talk about that. Even though it may be a state responsibility, number one, we can talk to the state. But number two, if it's in the city limits of Columbiana, I'd like for us to be proactive about this.
Going back to the issue of the storefronts on Main Street, obviously it's something of great interest to the Main Street Board, of which I'm a part. There is a program that Montevallo does. It's called a facade grant program. So you incentivize owners by giving a little money to make improvements to the outside, the street-facing part of their property. And we'd love for the council and you, Mayor, to consider that, to give us a little seed money. We have paperwork really ready to go as a proposal for you all to consider. And I think it may get some of these folks who have kind of been not really moving on stuff. It gives them incentive because they get up to half Montebella's program is up to $5,000 to do projects. So that would mean somebody can invest $10,000 of work and get half of it paid for. And they give away about $20,000 a year with their facade grant program.
So you've already started what I would recommend you to do. You've already putting together a proposal to give to the council, and then we can put it into our budgeting process.
So let's talk about the municipality grant.
Well, I think Montebello originally got a private grant for it, but I think some of those funds you're talking about could potentially be given to Main Street Board, and then we could then divvy it out to private owners, which I think the city is prohibited from doing. So ultimately, obviously, we want to continue to build our funding base with the supporters in our community, but in the initial stages, of course, we'd love to have more city support, and we appreciate the support we've already gotten.
All right, we tired? All right, well, look, I appreciate everybody coming out. I wish there would have been more, just because, the reason we do this is for you. And it's an opportunity for us to be able to hear from you and what your issues and your concerns are. Again, I'm telling you, it's an excuse more than anything else. But, 9 times out of 10, when we say, well, we didn't get to this and we forgot about that, shame on us. And we need you to hold us to account for the things that we're responsible to do. And it's forums like this that helps to do that. I mean, there are some people I get lots of phone calls from, and that's okay. And others we get emails from, but most people say nothing. And so we need a forum like this where you guys can come and have an opportunity to say what's on your mind. And then it lets us know as your representatives on this council what it is that you want to get done, because that's what it's all about. And so I appreciate you being here. So if there are any more questions, I kind of wanted to wrap it up. I've got some guests who are here from out of the country. They're visiting me. They were my neighbors in Saudi Arabia. And Mike is originally from Johannesburg, South Africa. He grew up in Johannesburg. And Zeus grew up in Sydney, Australia. Now, those are not small towns. And we lived in a little Bedouin village in Riyadh of about 9.2 million people. So these guys aren't used to small town communities. And now, here they are in small town Alabama. It's a little bit of a culture shock for them. But I would like for you, if you have an opportunity to talk to Mike and talk to Zeus, welcome them to Columbiana and show them what small town hospitality is all about. Now, if you've ever traveled out of Alabama, you've probably been places where somebody made fun of your southern accent. Isn't that right? I know Kathy, it just drives her nuts that people make fun of her southern accent when she goes places. Well, I'm going to tell you, Mike and Zeus are on our turf now. They talk funny. And it is okay for you to poke a little fun at them if you have some conversation. But we're glad that they came all the way halfway around the world to visit us here in Columbiana and set through this and find out what's important to the folks here in Columbiana. So I appreciate it. We've got some drinks and some snacks over here. And, like I said, Zeus is from Sydney. So we're going to go over to the local, and you can come over and join us in a round of